This exhibition is Rembrandt's Changing Impressions. It's an exhibition that shows 52 prints by Rembrandt. And the idea behind the show is to show them in their various changing form as he worked on the plate. Rembrandt was one of those artists that was very committed to making prints himself, working on the copper plate himself. And these are images that for the most part relate to none of his paintings. They are works that only exist in printed form, and the works in the show are ones that we think Rembrandt printed himself or worked with his supervision. The prints from this exhibition come from 14 collections in the United States, and a lot of them are showing the changes that occur in the print as he works on the plate. Rembrandt's most interesting portraits of Jan Lutma, who was a goldsmith in Amsterdam. He was a very famous goldsmith. His work is being collected today. And in the earliest version of the image, Rembrandt depicts him seated in a chair with a blank wall behind him. There's even a nice detail of a nail sticking out of the plaster of the wall behind him. He printed many of these on different types of papers. There are at least 50 impressions that survive today of this image. But what's interesting is that you see in a later version of the image, the wall in the background has been completely transformed and opens up into this window that leads to the outside. We know that this wasn't necessarily a change that was made because that it was perceived to be a mistake. This was an image that was transformed in process of the reworking the plate a little bit to bring out some of the richness of the plate, and while he was working on it, he decided to add this window. And what's interesting as well is that you can really see the effect of different types of papers on the image, because here we have the same version with the window, but on a Japanese paper. And Rembrandt was one of the first European artists to make use of these Japanese papers, which were newly imported from Asia through trade reached Amsterdam in the 1640s, and Rembrandt began using them right away, more so than any other artist in his time. So this is a sequence of images that shows you not only the changes to the plate, but also the effects of using different types of paper, and how you see how lovely this tone is with this slightly darker paper. So, this image is one of Rembrandt's most dramatically altered images. In the earlier version, you see this is Christ presented to the people. There's a crowd of people gathered in the front here, and Pilate is asking them to choose which person to release, Jesus or the criminal Barabbas. And eventually he releases Barabbas, and Jesus is led to the crucifixion. This is on a nice, well-preserved sheet of Japanese paper, which gives it this nice overall beige tone. And this is a very rich image in terms of the amount of dry point, fresh dry point, where Rembrandt is really going directly into the plate and generating this rich effect called burr, where the ink slightly smears a bit. It's an aesthetic effect that he was really trying to achieve in this image. It undergoes a really dramatic transformation in the later version, where Rembrandt almost completely obliterates the crowd in front of the image. This level of removal is actually very difficult to do in a copper plate. Difficult but not impossible, involving a lot of scraping and even hammering to remove this amount of image. But there's nothing to suggest that he was unhappy with the crowd. There are many impressions that were printed of the earlier version. It creates a very different sensibility, however, in terms of the relationship with the scene itself. For example, when you stand in front of this image, you are now confronted directly with the podium containing this decision that's about to be made. We become members of the crowd. One of the interesting things that's sort of come out of working on this project is that Rembrandt might not have been the only person who was thinking about these changes in his prints. For example, a lot of the portraits that he did are of sitters that were also very interested in the possibilities of what a printed image could do. And I think that's one of the more interesting findings in this project, is that patronage, the idea that a work of art is often a collaboration between an artist and someone who commissions the work of art, can also have an impact in the way that the image is made in the case of Rembrandt's Changing Impressions.